The time is 2 p.m. You're watching yet another edition of Nedbank Business Watch right here on Eswatini TV. I am Nothelisi Tole, glad to have you on the program. The cost of doing business in the country is under scrutiny as electricity supply pressures mount. According to the Managing Director of the Eswatini Electricity Company, an additional over 169 million Imalangeni is required to purchase electricity from Eskom alone. And in our business report today, the business community is engaging with the EEC and the Eswatini Energy Regulatory Authority, sharing their views on a proposed 20.67% electricity tariff increase. Also, with that said, what do the business people really have to say? We'll hear their views later on the program. And also with Nedbank, we'll discuss smart banking solutions for students and parents. But first, our business stories this afternoon.
Digital helps you make cross-border payments. Human gives you global specialists. Digital allows you to apply for a loan anytime, anywhere. Human connects you to credit experts. Digital puts you in control of your money, while Human connects you to wealth advisors. Digital allows you to freeze, unfreeze, cancel, and reorder your card. Human gives you that personal touch. Digital when you want it. Human when you need it. Get the complete private banking experience with Nedbank Private Clients.
In some of our business stories, the Minister for Commerce, Industry and Trade, Honorable Manqoba Khumalo, has called for stricter quality assurance measures and urged the Eswatini Standards Authority to strengthen its oversight. This was during the unveiling of two newly appointed board members who will be in office for the next 3 years.
We have Mr. Temba Luyanda Khumalo, who is representing the Ministry of Agriculture. He holds a master's degree in animal science and is a very seasoned civil servant within the ministry who is going to assist us at Eswasa to make sure that for agricultural goods and services we develop the right standards. We also would like to introduce Mr. Mbongeni Simelane, who is in the construction industry, an engineer by profession, and is a director of one of the leading construction companies in the country, and also holds a Master's of Science in Business Administration. And his introduction to the board will add more knowledge in the area of construction and engineering, because Eswasa needs to develop very strong standards in this particular space. I've made an example of the fact that when we buy roofing material, we don't currently have a national standard that says it should be to this standard, and therefore sometimes the nation suffers loss and prejudice because of the lack of standards. I will challenge this board, this council, to ensure that the presence of SWASA is felt in industry, in commerce, in business, and indeed with the consumers. And I want them to come back with streamlined processes that will ensure that everything that is produced, everything that is consumed, and in particular everything that is imported into the country is held to particular standards, and therefore there must be a process to ensure that there are inspections that will assure the consumer that what they buy is up to the rightful Eswasa standard, and not only that, will also be healthy for consumption for Maswati.
The Eswatini Electricity Company has an overall shortfall of required revenue of over 437 million emalangeni for the financial year 2026-2027. This was shared by the Managing Director, Ernest Mkonda, when he made his presentation to the business community on why the company has requested a 20.67% tariff increase from the Eswatini Energy Regulatory Authority, ESERA. The engagement was held at Sibane Sami in Eswatini.
We need an additional 169 million to meet purchases from Eskom and another 5 million to meet purchases from other suppliers. This therefore results in a shortfall or under recovery, or rather, this results in 173 or rather 176 million, or 5, they say. 175 million that we need for purchasing power. A reconciliation of the 2024-25 financial year, where we posted an under recovery of 262 million, 0.8 emalangeni. The overall shortfall that is required for the 2026-27 financial year then becomes 437 million, 883,115 emalangeni. The award for 2026, we got 4.6% for the facility charges and access charge. That does not change for the request that we have brought today. So there is no change in that area. However, on the energy charges, we are requesting an increase of 14.58% for the demand charge, 14.58% for the energy, and 14.5% for the non-time of use, and 9.6% for the lifeline, and 16% for the domestic award. And in overall, that then means that for each of these categories, starting from the demand charge, we will require 24% increase and 15.6% increase for the lifeline, and then 26% increase for the domestic award. And that translates to an average of 20.67%. If you look at the revised revenue request, we have 3.21 billion emalangeni, and the actual revenues that we collected is 2.95 billion emalangeni. The reason why this figure is higher, it is because of the increase in the cost of sales that we experienced in 2024-2025 financial year.
And that is your business brief this afternoon. For now, we'll go for a break, and when we come back, we'll get to listen to some of the submissions made by different businesses on the proposed EEC tariff increase. This is Nedbank Business Watch. Stay with us. Welcome back. This is Nedbank Business Watch, and thank you for staying with us. Still moving on to this, different entities, including businesses, have urged the Eswatini Electricity Company and Esera to consider how the proposed 20.67% tariff will affect the daily operations, which could lead to job losses and make operations more difficult. Let's take a listen to the submissions made at Sibanesa Hotel at Eswatini today.
We've been involved in the electricity journey for some time, and mine is not really to go to a question. Mine is looking at what is sitting before me. I see Eswatini is on a collision course of failed management. We had a relationship with EEC that dates back some 30 years, and then came Esera. And when I look at the last 7 years of what we've been trying to do there, the objectives of what we're trying to do as a country are lost. We don't know what we want as a country. Do we want jobs in factories? Do we want electricity in our houses and no jobs in factories? Because we seem to be chasing both blindly in different directions. And we are going to lose jobs. When the costs go through the roof, we can no longer produce. We can't produce and compete with anywhere in the world. So how are we going to get out of this mess? I'm not seeing a solution in the process that exists by EEC having to pitch a request to Esera, and then Esera validating or unvalidating or twisting that around, and then later somebody in government coming along afterwards with a different number. We cannot run our businesses what we are getting at the moment. So I have been in manufacturing for some 30 years. I have never seen the mess that sits before me in front of me right now. When I leave this meeting, my brain tells me that we need to close factories in the country because we want power in houses on top of the hill. I don't deny whoever is sitting on top of the hill having power, but I can't afford to run a factory to pay for the distribution of getting that power to somebody on the top of a hill. I can't afford. I don't have a factory that is producing product that can compete on the world market. So we are killing industry.
We work with vulnerable populations, especially disability and gender. And from what I'm hearing, it sounds like we are going to reallocate our programmatic funds to utility funds. It looks like we'll be spending more on our utility funds, whereas our programs are already slagging. We have a grant, especially the disability grant, which is hardly meeting the needs for people with disability. And this hike will mean that whatever small amount they're going to get, that very little money will be going towards electricity. So I am very concerned about the mental health, not just for disability, but for our vulnerable population. So whatever decisions are made with regard to the hike, can we please consider that the Deputy Prime Minister's office will have a very heavy load on them?
Why are schools categorized as commercial entities? Because a school is not a business. It is a public good and it doesn't make any profit. I gather that we are classified as commercial. Maybe EC and Esera could with government, could be bilaterals to think about offering us a different category. I take what the DPMO officer is saying, because there are different categories in the ministries that we have as government. So we would really appreciate bilaterals which would then categorize schools and tertiary institutions differently, because we are not making profit. Also, as the Minister of Education, the increase in the electricity also, the 20%, it seems high, It's high for us, and that will compromise the quality of education that we're offering, and compromising parents cannot afford because even the free primary education money that is allocated in schools will not cater for all the expenses that are in the school.
The managing director of Eswatini Electricity Company, Ernest Mkonda, responded to some of the concerns, emphasizing that every entity is charged based on what it consumes. He says if they do not increase the tariff, the company will struggle to operate.
Gavin raises very important issues that we need to address collectively. But I have just put back some of the slides here. The key lies in us reducing our imports by building our own power stations in the country, which will be subjected to increases that are driven by this economy, not increases that are driven by another economy. It is the same thing. He mentions that he's a supplier of international goods. If the price increases here, he has to increase his prices to his customers across. Now, in order for us to be able to address that, we have put programs in place to put power stations across the country. IPPs, I have mentioned, we have already launched 2 IPPs, one in solar and another in biomass. There is also another IPP that was launched in 2024, which is building a hydropower downstream of Usutu River called Lower Magodusa. This Lower Magodusa project is expected to come into stream and deliver the first megawatt in the first quarter of 2027. And that will bring down imports by a significant, it's not going to be a quarter of the imports, but it's going to be a significant amount. What we have observed is that because this one is going to be a run-of-river power station, and it will operate 24 hours. Operating a cheaper power station for 24 hours benefits us more, even if it is a smaller power station, than importing the same amount of electricity. We can try to mitigate, such as the increase in the spending. We understand our customers' pleas. But in order for us to deliver the service to the customer, we need to pay. We need to pay for maintenance. We need to pay for the other resources that provide that service to our customers, without which the service cannot be provided. I'll give you an example. In the current financial year, we have had to dig deeper into the overdraft in order to make sure that there is electricity in every home, there is electricity in every business. The overdraft is not sustainable. And the overdraft is increasing because the cost of providing the service is increasing.
And that was the Eswatini Electricity Company Managing Director Ernest Mkonda explaining to the business community why the company has to hike electricity for the upcoming financial year. This is Nedbank Business Watch. We'll go for a break. When we come back, we'll speak to in-house economist Zanele Sibia. Welcome back. And moving on with the program, persistent rains countrywide this month have had far-reaching economic consequences, disrupting commerce and damaging infrastructure. Now, this climate-related reality has translated into lost income for businesses as extreme weather events become more frequent and costly. What about economic resilience, the adequacy of global climate investments, and whether forums such as the ongoing World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, are doing enough to address climate change as an economic risk rather than a future concern? We'll now speak to economist Anele Sibia, who joins us virtually. Mr. Sibia, good afternoon, and thank you very much for your time. Perhaps you can just quantify the damage for us from an economic perspective. How significant have these weather-related shocks been to especially regional economies, or specifically Eswatini?
Thank you, Notsile, and a good afternoon to you and the viewers. So I think what we can do at this point, Notsile, is to give a bit of a normative or basically a counterfactual statement in terms of how we expect this to actually be quantified. You can start with overall, we know in Eswatini we expected schools to open, but they couldn't open because of the climate-related events. And when you look at that, it brings to mind the intertemporal effects of that in the sense that when you have people who are supposed to be in school, but due to the damages that are caused by the rains, then you couldn't get pupils to school. So now that's a cost on the fiscal purse. And then also on the fiscal side of things, you have to imagine the amount of damages that we've been seeing are reported across the country and also across the region. Now that means there is more works to be done, public works to be done, and that's going to dig into the fiscal purse. And we know already that in terms of our road budgets, we had anticipated, I think, around 400 to 500 million to refurbish the roads that we had. And then right now, immediately after we've started those works, we have to again go back to the drawing board because the rains have caused damage to that. So now again, that's another cost to the fiscal purse. And then also the cost on the personal side, where you have people who are not able to move and get to work. And then imagine, those that are paid on a daily basis, an hourly wage basis. That means those are lost wages. And then you also have commerce on the other end, where we expect to move. Right now we've been commending a very good farming season, the good rains and everything, but the produce it doesn't do anyone any good if it can't move and get into the market. So now that brings about yet another logistical nightmare, both on your micro or those small farmers and from the standpoint of bigger farmers as well, and commerce overall. I mean, imagine if you had your supply chain coming through from Mozambique, or your supply chain to destination goes through Mozambique. We've been seeing the damage that's been coming through from Mozambique in terms of, we've seen trucks being submerged in rains where there used to be a road, it was now a dam. So we have to wait a few days before we can get supply chains normalizing through the Mozambique channel and that route. So it's been quite a plethora of effects, and it's going to cost the nation a bit much, which then calls for more investments in climate resilience and climate change mitigation.
How those that are supposed to be in school are probably not going to be in school anytime soon due to the damage on infrastructure. Do these events, the impact that we've seen, does it in any way filter through to perhaps GDP growth and inflation?
Definitely not. It will filter through GDP growth, because when you study the impact of climate-related events on a nation's economy, it is largely the impact on GDP. Because one of the things that has to happen right now is either supply chains have to be routed through a different route. Now that's going to cost a bit more, and then in terms of addition and in terms of cash flow balances within companies, now that's going to have an adverse effect on those. So effectively, it will filter through that. And then if it continues, because even today we're waking up, it's still raining, you'd have hoped that it was going to take a bit of a breather. So now that's going to affect this positive harvest that we're expecting, because that too much water can actually damage plants through waterlogging and other water-related illnesses. So the agricultural sector may already feel that pinch. And then in also terms of trying to catch up with the harvesting season and making sure that goods are able to move from farm to processing within a short space of time, so that when I get to market, they are still reaping that higher GDP value that we are looking into. So right now, that's a double blow for Eswatini, because we work mostly to trade, and when we trade in a global economy, and the markets are not necessarily going to wait for Eswatini produce, because Eswatini is dealing with climate-related events. They're just going to go to other suppliers, because we're not the only supplier of the commodities that we are putting out there. So essentially, if such continue, we are going to see those adverse effects on GDP. And then also in terms of just moving commodities around, what this would mean if these rains were to continue and have more damage in the fields, that would expect to see a bit of an inflationary period come June, July, post-harvesting season, when, really the supply for the commodities goes below goes below the demand, and we need to start importing more of that, and then we get to have that imported inflation. So it will eventually affect those macroeconomic aggregates, but we are waiting to see what the extent of the damage is and what impact it's going to have on the yields before we can start quantifying those. But fortunately, when we're looking at the current rains in the region and in Eswatini, we've not seen much damages to infrastructure. It's only through Mozambique that we've been seeing much market damages, and now that is not one of the major trading routes for the country. But yeah, eventually we're going to see those impacts.
You say not much damage to infrastructure, although already, Mrs. Bia, some businesses are already feeling the pinch. That's in sectors such as logistics, your agriculture, and one company, Montigny. They did talk about, release a report rather, that while we're being interviewed here, that they've made losses of at least 5 million emalangeni in just 1 week. Given these impacts, do you see a risk that climate change just might deepen economic inequalities?
So I'm going to answer your question in two ways, Notile, because in a way it is a two-way type of question. The first one being, we're seeing the losses in the sense that businesses are stuck with, labor and those other overheads while we are waiting for the rains to subside. So now that's going to be a loss, because you're paying labor and other equipment for virtually doing nothing. But that's a cost which you could probably recoup if the weather allows and you're able to go back into field and work probably double time. But again, it depends on sector specific. But when you're looking at the macro perspective of things, as the roads, we haven't seen much damage. I think I've only seen one, that's the Mapuka Road, that has been damaged, and there's also the Kubuta Road, where they're not able to move goods out of into markets. So now it gets to be a bit more convoluted that way, but the effect on a macro level may not be as pronounced, but we're waiting to see the numbers. But yeah, 5 million on a daily basis does, it does eat into the pocket when you're not producing, and it takes a bit of a while to, to undo HR contracts. And then in terms of those micro integrities, yes, what this extreme weather event has actually revealed, Notile, is the fact that when you look at what is happening in Babane Manzini, you and I have not felt what the people in Kubuta have felt. So now that is just showing the rural-urban divide in terms of infrastructure and the resilience to climate shocks. So that requires that we're able to build a model where we ensure that resilience is not only centralized in certain regions, but the entire country gets to be resilient. And, I'm thinking of what happens when schools open. Next week, schools are going to open, but most likely there are schools that aren't going to open because of these extreme climate events. Again, that's another impact of the rural-urban divide and the level of infrastructure that we have, when you compare between the rural and urban areas. So what that means is you get to have development being concentrated in one area of the country, and you have other areas of the country being left out of the development process. And we do need to ensure that the balance is struck between those to ensure that we leave no one behind in our development endeavors.
Mr. Spear, often when we talk about early warning systems, they speak to investment and they speak to the infrastructure being there and being utilized in order that governments and different countries are able to take actions early. But we are not seeing so much of a proactive approach to climate change reality. So what are the economic costs of delaying climate adaptation versus to the cost of acting now, which is rather a more responsive approach?
Ma'am, thank you, Notzile. No, the costs are actually quite marked, and they tend to, unmask the disparities in our development and the endeavors as a country. So what we need to, my viewpoint in this, Notzile, is early warning systems evidently are not enough if you are not mitigating and adapting to the new realities. For example, we've been talking about damaged roads and all of those. We knew early that the rains were coming, but the problem is, were we ready? If we had to evacuate people and do quite a number of things, were we ready for that? So now that's one of the things that we need to think around to ensure that we have the early warning systems, but we are also thinking around mitigation and adaptation, because that has an overall effect into commerce and into business and into the economy overall. So basically, what we need to do right now, and what we're seeing happening in Davos, even though it's now being overtaken by geopolitical risks, we were expecting that, we're going to see a bit of more talks around how do we ensure that as we expand our energy use with what we're seeing AI, the energy requirements around AI. So one would expect that there should be a huge push also to ensure that we're moving to green energy, and also we are moving into adaptation, because we seem to be moving in a direction that's going to be energy heavy and energy dependent. And it becomes relatively easy when you're talking to commerce right now, because that's where the finance is going to come from. So the World Economic Forum is a very good platform for that. When you're talking to commerce, to say, as you expand, as we are creating these new power grids, we are building these data centers and we are ramping up, production. How do we ensure that we are moving in a green manner? And how do we ensure that we are pushing these copper commitments towards the adaptation and mitigation that we've been talking about? And how do we ensure that we are driving a green energy revolution? So it's a mix of policies, not to ensure that we are not left out of the developmental process, but while at the same time we need to ensure that we are not, pushing development in a wrong way.
Similarly to you, Mrs. Bia's also hoping so far that climate change would top discussions in Davos, but not as yet, not as much as I thought it would, but we're yet to see how the conversations go on. However, I'd like to reveal this to you. Climate-related hazards are estimated to cost African countries 2 to 5% of GDP annually, and force many of them to divert up to 9% of their budgets to response and recovery. A common thing or common knowledge is that every Africa does need climate finance. From an economic growth perspective, how would you say, or what does this rather mean for long-term development plans within the continent?
For me, Notzile, it's a plan that is feasible with the financing, and we've been to multiple COPs, and there have been commitments made, but the money just never gets to Africa. And now that leaves us in a quagmire type of situation, because on one end we have to keep the lights going. We need the roads. We need quite a number of development of infrastructure, developmental infrastructure. But if we are not pushing, if the global north is not pushing the money, because Africa is not a net emitter like your China and the USAs and all the other countries in the global north. Actually, we are not emitting as much into the atmosphere. So now, if we expected to channel as much just to adaptation and mitigation when we're not getting the support, what that means is, it means we are not going to be developing at the pace that we need to be developing as a continent, because we do need the power grid to stay on, not in. We do need the road infrastructure to boost connectivity, and we do need the trains to also boost connectivity. So right now, I think what the choice that has to be made is, do we allow Africa to grow through fossilized power and fossilized type of industries, or we are going to transfer the technology and the money to Africa to ensure that we are able to grow Africa in a way that is sustainable. Because, for example, if you expect a country like Eswatini, for example, to mount a hydropower station, and then you look at the power output that's going to come out from there, it's really much higher and more minimal. It's much higher than what you would need to set up a say a solar plant that's going to supply the same amount of power as a dam. And even the dam, when you look at the amount of power that you can actually supply from just one thermal power station, that's just says no, just go with the thermal until and unless we see those investments coming in to make the costs of renewables relatively lower and more competitive compared to the fossils. Then you are basically just saying to Africa, do not grow, let me grow for you, and you're just going to import things. So it's just going to stay in this low level spectrum of development until and unless, you know, the global north gets serious about climate financing and adaptation to climate change.
Well put. Thank you very much, Mr. Sibia, for your insights. In-house economist Sanele Sibia talking to us about the impacts that we've seen of the persistent rains that we have seen in the country and why climate change needs to dominate economic agendas. For now, we'll go for a break. After that, we sit down with Nedbank. Welcome back. You are still watching Nedbank Business Watch right here on Eswatini TV. And of course, we're still in the back-to-school season. And this afternoon, we want to discuss smart banking solutions for both parents and students. And therefore, I'm joined by Bagcinile Simelane, who is Team Leader Sales at Nedbank. I'm good. How are you doing?
Good afternoon. I'm good, thanks.
Glad to have you in the studio. So the reality is parents have a lot more school-related transactions to make. You know, the financial pressures are there. And how is Nedbank actually just, responding to those realities?
Okay, we are offering flexible financial solutions for our parents to make sure that they have all their kids going back to school, because we don't want our clients to find themselves stressed about not being able to take their kids back to school. So basically, you are able to apply for personal loans. Preferably, we offer them the educational ones. We offer those that run over 12 months so that they can be able to reapply the following year for the next school year. And those that had started saving from last year, they're able to just access those funds without any issues and pay for their children's fees at any time. Right. So yeah, we're just offering flexible financial solutions basically.
In our conversation last week, Bagcinile, I recall you highlighted how important it is to plan ahead and save, of course. I'd like for you to talk to us about the dedicated savings accounts. How do you think it can help families to especially manage, lump sum school expenses a bit more effectively?
Yeah, to be honest, it's quite tricky. I know that it's not easy putting money aside from your salary, because you already feel like, oh my goodness, is my salary even sufficient to cover the monthly expenses? But I think you just need to be able to discipline yourself and try to work with an amount that is not going to strain you as well. Because what you can do is that you can put aside some money that maybe can assist with covering 50% of the school expenses for the following year, so that when the lump sum when you are given the lump sum of how much you need to pay, it doesn't feel like you're starting from zero. And then maybe you can top up with that loan that you can take over 12 months to fill up the other 50%.
Yeah.
So I think if you can work around it in that manner, it helps, because sometimes it's very strenuous to find yourself saving quite a lot of money, and now you're going through the year and you are having issues with regarding to managing your household, because now maybe your savings are a bit too high.
Yeah.
But some people are actually able to just adjust, adapt, and be committed to the cause.
Yeah.
That's also encouraged.
Right.
Yeah.
In what you unpacked in my first question when we started out the conversation, one of the things you touched on was a student account,
Yes.
which is actually ideal for students. And I'll take it for the parents. Now will probably be a really good time, a fitting time to plan. As you plan, you ensure that your scholars, your young ones, your bundles, they have student accounts open for them. As we kick off the year. Talk to us about that, what it takes to have a student account open, whether I'm the student or I'm the parent, I just want to secure my child's financial and education future.
Okay, the student accounts, I encourage them for kids, because they help empower them to be able to manage their finances early. So it goes a long way when they also now start working. In terms of the students accounts, for children that are below 18 years, they need their parents to open the student accounts on their behalf, because they are minors. So basically, it's the parent that opens the student account. But for children that are above 18, they are able to open the account themselves with their ID, with their confirmation of registering or an acceptance letter. So anything that can just prove that the child is a student, and then proof of residence, which obviously would be co-signed by the parent. They are able to open their account. In terms of the one where the student is below 18, the parent opens it on behalf of the child, along with their birth certificate and the parent's ID, proof of being a student, and also proof of residence. The student account is very flexible. There are no charges on the transactions that happen on the account. We just have one annual charge, which is about 52 amalangeni, one annual charge. And then the rest of the transactions, being transacting on the app, being depositing in the retail account, being swiping, or even withdrawing from the ATM, there are zero charges associated with that.
Right.
Yeah, so it also makes it easy for them to save on their account as well.
I want to give you a moment to convince me a bit more on the student account and why it's so ideal. I understand that the zero charges.
Yes.
But I probably want to ask myself, or I'm asking myself, what if I am above 21? What if I am 25? Maybe I'm just starting out uni, first year of uni. Can I still apply for the same solution?
Yes, you can apply, because it doesn't mean that you'd have to be a student that's in high school. University students also use this account, especially those students that you find that are actually going to school abroad, and they need to have an account whereby they are receiving allowances from their parents. So it helps in that case as well.
It works abroad?
Yes, it works abroad.
Interesting.
Yes.
Okay, that's great. So the student account offering by Nedbank, just for both the parents to know and the students as well, it works abroad. I think that's a bonus. And in what situations then, if we could just talk about a scenario, would a personal loan perhaps be a practical option, for educational related needs?
Okay, personal loan, it's in two folds, like I said, because we do have a personal loan that is repayable over 60 months, and then we have an educational loan that is repayable over 12 months. So the personal loan assists in a case whereby maybe you are taking the loan for more than just your school needs, or you do have an existing loan that you had taken prior for other needs, but now you want to top up the same loan so that you can provide for fees for your child. So you can also top up on that loan. But you can also decide to have another loan separately from your personal loan, which is the educational loan, and repay it over 12 months. Sometimes you find that our clients are not able to run both loans concurrently. So they would have to decide on whether taking the personal loan or taking the educational loan. Yeah.
I understand that convenience is a key theme in Nedbank's back to school offering.
Yes.
Can you talk to us about the deposit taking ATMs? How do they reduce, time and cost pressures for parents who now have to go up and about making deposits, different schools, different banks?
Yeah.
Talk to us about that.
Okay, we're all about assisting our clients manage time and their finances. We do not want to frustrate our clients. So hence the convenience of the deposit-taking machines, so that our clients can be able to deposit school fees, payments wherever they are. So we have tried to broaden our network, so that these ATMs are easily accessible to our clients. We have those ATMs, there are those ATMs that are attached to branches, all Nedbank branches within Eswatini. We have 13 branches. And then we have deposit-taking machines as well that are not attached to branches, where clients are, we're in closer proximity with our clients. Yeah, I think I tried to list them last week as well. So yeah, we do try to offer that flexibility for our clients, so that they feel the convenience. They feel that we, as a bank, we do care about offering them that convenience to be able to sort out their needs.
Flexibility and convenience, which are key elements,
Yes.
especially when it comes to finances. The Nedbank Money app, how would you say it helps families or the parents manage their finances effectively?
Okay, the Nedbank Money app is just basically banking in the palm of your hand.
Simplified.
And, simplified in the comfort of your home, where you do not have to hold any queues, where you are able to transfer funds whenever, wherever, and you easily get confirmation of that payment, which you can then submit to the school or give to the child to submit at school. So the Money app is very convenient for our clients in terms of being able to transact effortlessly, and it's actually quite straight to the point. So we really urge our clients that you do not have to join the queue. If you have the Nedbank Money app, use it to pay fees.
Right.
Yeah,
That's good. As Eswatini TV, alongside Nedbank, we've had conversations on fraud awareness. We also commemorated or observed the International Cybersecurity Awareness Month just last year. We're going to have the same this year at some point later in the year. And one of the things that were being discussed was you need to be very mindful as a client, as a user of the information that you put out there.
Sure.
And with that said, also in the country, we've seen a number of scams. We've seen Eswatini falling victim to scams.
Yeah.
Mostly because of knowledge, lack of knowledge, we can say. So if you could just give us the assurance here, you give the clients an assurance that as a bank, we do ensure the safety in terms and security while you use our digital platforms.
Yes.
So I would like to know, how as a bank, how do you ensure trust? How should I ensure that the digital solutions provided to me by Nedbank are secure to use?
Okay, yeah, our digital platforms are secure. We do encourage our clients and we do sensitize our clients not to share their login credentials with anyone, whether it's your child, whether it's your partner, whether it's a sibling. Do not share that, because once you share those credentials, then you become vulnerable to all these attacks that you're talking about. So we need to safeguard against that. Also, we do encourage that you pick an option that will allow you to send an OTP for the transactions that you do, so that it kind of has a two-step verification that the person who is actually facilitating that transaction is the owner of that account. Also, we would like to sensitize around being assisted at our ATMs. please use ATMs that have security personnel so that you are assisted by security personnel instead of asking a stranger to assist you if it so happens that you're now in a situation whereby you are a bit lost on the ATM, because that's also what exposes our clients from now being scammed, because there's always people there on the lookout. So we just need to use those options as well. Yeah.
As we wrap it up, I'd like for you to talk to us about the philosophy, Nedbank's philosophy of money experts who do good. You know, this approach, how do you see it shaping support towards education?
Well, it's looking out for our clients, understanding what our clients need at any given point. Just like right now, we are running a campaign at the bank for our clients that are applying for school loans. We have some promotional back-to-school materials that we are handing out to our clients once they have successfully applied for an educational loan. So we are just trying to show clients that we're there and we understand the situation that they're in January, and we are trying to assist them in any way that we can. Also advising them when they come for the loans that you also need to make sure that you don't only rely on the loans, but also rely on your savings, because like it or not, the truth is we do have funds that we use anyhow that can be actually redirected towards saving. So we do encourage them that let's try to be disciplined, let's try to ensure that we are using our money correctly, and let's also be our own money experts. Yes.
Thank you very much. I love that one. Be your own money expert. That was Bagcinile Smilane, team sales leader at Nedbank Eswatini. We were just discussing some of the smart banking solutions for students and parents offered by your friend in a bank, Nedbank. The show continues after this.
Digital helps you make cross-border payments. Human gives you global specialists. Digital allows you to apply for a loan anytime, anywhere. Human connects you to credit experts. Digital puts you in control of your money, while human connects you to wealth advisors. Digital allows you to freeze, unfreeze, cancel, and reorder your card. Human gives you that personal touch. Digital when you want it. Human when you need it. Get the complete private banking experience with Nedbank Private Clients.
Welcome back. We've come now to our final segment of the show, which is our market analysis segment with Toba Kametse, Treasury Sales Manager at Nedbank. Kametse, good to have you in studio. So can you just weigh in on what markets are pricing in as President Trump's threatened tariffs and the want for Greenland dispute kind of persists?
Good afternoon, Notsila, and thank you again for having me. So there is, that is front and center right now in terms of global markets. Investors are looking at what will come out of the President's address at the World Economic Forum today over the escalating tensions over Greenland, as you said. So there is, he has obviously threatened tariffs to European countries that would oppose that decision for the U.S. to gain control of Greenland. But he has, in his earlier speech, said that the U.S. and NATO are going to come to an agreement that is going to be mutually beneficial for both parties. We don't know what that looks like, but yeah, there is uncertainty and there is tension and pressure in global markets because of that.
The EU did say they were going to retaliate one way or the other if the tariffs, U.S. President Donald Trump's tariffs did go through. How worried should we be about that?
So it is grounds to worry because then that speaks of a trade war again. We've done this rodeo from April last year, and we've seen how that has moved the dollar, for example, to 19 and some change against the rand. So with that uncertainty, then it presents a lot of volatility in the market, which can be beneficial for others, but it can as well harm others depending on which side of the spectrum you're on. So with the possibility of a trade war, it then says that there's going to be a lot of uncertain movements and moving parts, which will make it a bit difficult for businesses and corporates to manage their exposures and their risks.
Let's get down to the numbers. When we look at equities, what's your observation this afternoon?
So in terms of equities, we see that the S&P 500 and the FTSE are down. That is due to the S&P 500 significantly down, 2.06% at 6,796, and that is due to the geopolitical tensions that we continue to see and the uncertainty that is in the market. There's heightened risk aversion with investors looking at safer options for their money and their investments, shying away from riskier investments like equities. Likewise, we see the FTSE at 10,126.78 pounds, down 0.67%, while the JSE share is up 0.35% at 120,000. That is, obviously, South Africa is a commodity-backed economy, and we're seeing the prices of commodities or precious metals reaching record levels, so they are benefiting off of that.
Right. Gold and oil have been on the green. What's driving this?
Yes, so gold today broke a record, the record of the level of $4,800 US dollars per ounce, trading at 4,865 against per ounce, which is about 2.13%. That is due to the uncertainty that is in the market. Gold is a safe option for investors, so its safe haven status is making it appealing to investors in times of uncertainty as we are in right now. So we've seen gold reaching these levels. Oil as well is up at $70.37 per barrel, up 0.66%. That is due to just the uncertainty in the market in terms of supply security, with the geopolitical tensions and the trade war talks that we are seeing. It means that supply might be disrupted. So there's piling up that's happening currently. So that is then driving the price of oil up. Right.
With the rand, moving on to currencies, with the rand being a commodity-linked currency, it's been performing quite well lately, and we've seen the dollar weakening.
Yes.
How much longer can we see this impressive performance of the rand?
Yeah, so we expect to see that in the short term. It's obviously, difficult to call when it comes to foreign exchange in terms of, and with the rand being one of the most volatile currencies. But currently, when you look at what is happening in the short term, it favors the rand. We are, seeing the price of precious metals like gold, as I've mentioned, going up to 4,800 levels that we haven't seen before, and gold being one of the, South Africa being one of the major exporters of gold. Of silver, and other precious metals. So it has definitely benefited from that, and we're seeing a 16.34 against the dollar, which is about 0.43% up from yesterday. The pound and the euro all in the green at 21.9367, and the euro at 19.14 as well.
Right. We're wrapping it up now, Tova. Thank you very much for that. But we're expecting U.S. President to address the World Economic Forum. What's your expectation there?
you know, it's never wise to preempt what what the president of the US would say. But, you know, as I've said that, he has said that there is going to be a mutually beneficial agreement that is going to come out between the US and the Europe. So not sure what that is, but we are definitely watching closely to see how that will move markets.
And we look forward to having you again in studio breaking that one down for us. Thank you very much. That was Toba Kamete, Treasury Sales Manager at Nedbank, sharing insights on all that is shaping markets today. This has been Nedbank Business Watch. Thank you very much for staying with us. Until the next edition, take care.
Make better money choices. Choose a bank that takes your money seriously. Business Watch was brought to you by Nedbank.